the gardening versus architecture in creativity and music making.
Okay.
So as paradigms for generating new ideas. So like the one approach is very executive, like top down, architectural, like I'm managing and controlling every last little detail, and like, you know, I'm spending 18 hours creating the perfect snare or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
it's one approach, one
Or tweaking the
perspective.
snare until it sounds like it sounds in your head, kind of thing.
Yeah. And the other approach is a more kind of like top up, like I'm planting these little seeds. I'm gonna like, you know, see what happens. Basically, it's like a more discovery, exploration based approach. So like I'm
Right. How
I'm
many
going
corn
to-
is actually going to grow here? You know, we'll see. Could be
Yeah,
5, could
yeah.
be 10.
Yeah, it's like surrendering to a rule, which is like I think a really interesting kind of openness in terms of I think both there's value in both of those. I think that there's like, you know, there's a just creatively speaking, you need both the kind of like control, structure, organization oriented, you know, accounting brain, if you will, to sort of refine the raw materials of the, you know, unedited, just sort of like purging,
Yeah.
you know, ideas side. Like I think you can lean too heavily one way or the other. And I feel like personally, you know, it's way, way easier for me to start something new than it is to like look back at things that I started and finish it.
Yeah,
you know?
same.
It's like, I think that the two are, you know, there's a balance, a happy medium that you kind of need to seek
Yeah.
to be effective, creatively.
I think it's really fun at the beginning of a production when you don't know where it's going to go and you kind of make a decision, you know, like, let's roll with something. You know, it's like, let's not like leave too many options open. Let's just like, oh, you know, we're inspired by piano. Let's go with the piano thing instead of a guitar thing, you know? Let's, like, literally today I I beatboxed like a rhythm idea that I had into a microphone because it was like, I just don't have time to pull up a plugin and figure out a way to program this. Let me just beatbox this then. And it was such a vibe. It's like, let's keep this in the song. You know what I mean? Like, and let's roll with that because that's interesting and that's different and that's unique. You know what I mean? And so like the beginning of a production is like such a time to plant. You know what I mean? Because it's like, because then it could go in any direction that you want. Not that you want. It'll go in some direction based on just whatever's fueling creativity. And like you don't get stuck up in that kind of like, oh, but this isn't the kind of sound I wanted. Like no. Like it's a ripe opportunity to do that kind of thing.
I mean, I think that one of the maybe the most important thing, this is a little bit of a hobby horse of mine, but just like momentum in the production process and just kind of like energy management, you know, so like you're saying, just trying something, because like you'll never, you know, I've never started making something and foreseen exactly what the outcome would be. It's like,
Exactly.
that's what's beautiful about the creative process is that it's inherently, it is discovery. It's like, you know, you're never really in control of what's happening. It's happenstance, a lot of it. But you know, if you're open to that kind of like gardening type perspective, I think it's like, you know, it can be really exciting and satisfying. And I think, I also just think, as someone who overthinks often,
Don't we all?
You know, like my best buddy Nick and production partner, song, you know, co-writer, both of us are overanalyzers for sure. And like, so I think that if you're approaching a new production from that from that frame of mind, it can just be totally paralyzing because you could do anything. Like your options are endless now, you know, basically from a production standpoint. So it's like, what then is the decision-making apparatus? What do you like? What do you want to do? You know? So I think the answer to that is just something, just like do something. And then maybe that's not the right thing, but you can always do something else. You know, I think that's always comforting to people, especially, you know, I've worked with a few people recently where it's their first project. Maybe they've been performing and writing for a long time, but this is like their first release. And I think it's always comforting to know that, like, you know, you're never stuck with, you can always go back and, you know, do something different. But
Right.
like, you know, wisdom doesn't come through, you know,
Yeah.
overthinking things in advance. It's like you get,
Yeah.
it's the old like wisdom through action. Like you just have to
Absolutely.
just try it and see what happens, you know?
Yeah. I read a book called Start by this guy named John Acuff. I read it a while ago. I don't know if you've read it. It's like a self-help book, but it's like, if you don't start, like you literally aren't doing anything. Like you can't overthink all these things. You don't know what's going to happen. Like you're going to have to deal with whatever situation comes at you, but you're never going to know what those situations are going to be until you've just started. So you got to just put your first, you know, your best foot forward and start. And then, and you know, and I feel like you said, like the beginning, like when people have working on their first thing, they're really intimidated because it matters so much to them and they've never done it before. And they don't realize that like you're gonna have to do a lot of these to do anything, you know? So
Yeah.
like just get started and do a lot of these.